She was laughing, not just a little chuckle, but a full, throaty laugh as she signed the papers that would gut my life's work. Her lawyer smirked. They were a team celebrating their victory before the game was even over. They thought they had me. They thought they'd take half of everything I ever built. But they didn't know about the one piece of paper the judge was holding, the one that was about to turn her victory laugh into a horrified gasp. You know, it's funny how your entire world can be balanced on a single invisible thread. For 10 years, my thread was my family, my wife Isabella, and our 8-year-old son, Leo. It was a strong thread, or so I thought, woven from late nights building my architectural firm from the ground up, school plays, scraped knees, Sunday morning pancakes, and the scent of Isabella's perfume on my pillow. It was a good life, a solid life, the kind of life you see in commercials and think, yeah, that's the dream. I had the custom-built house in the suburbs, the successful business that was finally letting me breathe, and a family that made all the sacrifice feel worth it. I was the provider, the rock, the guy who fixed things. From a leaky faucet to a bad day at school, I was the one who made it right. That was my role, and I played it damn well. Isabella, she was the heart of the home. She was beautiful, charming, the kind of woman who could make a room light up just by walking into it. She managed the house, Leo's schedule, the social calendar. She was a master of aesthetics, of creating the appearance of a perfect life. I just didn't realize that's all it was. An appearance, a meticulously crafted stage set where I was the lead actor who hadn't been given a script. The first crack in the foundation didn't come with a bang. It was a whisper. It was in the little things. Her phone, which used to lie face up on the kitchen counter, was now perpetually face down. There were new late-night yoga sessions or book club meetings that I was never invited to, and she was always vague about. When I'd ask who was in her new book club, she'd wave her hand dismissively.
Oh, you don't know them, just some of the girls.
She started dressing differently, too. Not for me, but for someone. There was a little more effort, a little more expense in her wardrobe. I'm not an idiot, but I am an optimist. Or maybe I was just a fool who wanted to believe in the life he'd built. I told myself it was a phase. Maybe she was bored. Maybe I was the problem. I'd been working so hard for so long, maybe I'd neglected her. So I tried harder. I planned date nights. I bought her jewelry she'd asked for months ago. I made a point to be home for dinner every single night. I was patching the cracks, reinforcing the walls of our marriage. But I was patching them from the outside, completely oblivious to the fact that the entire structure was being hollowed out from within. The thread didn't just fray, it snapped. And it happened on a Tuesday, a completely unremarkable, gray, soul-crushingly normal Tuesday. I was in my office trying to finalize the blueprints for a big commercial project, the kind of project that could secure our future. Leo's future, for good. My phone buzzed on the desk. It was a text from my best friend, Mark. We'd known each other since college. He was the best man at my wedding. He was Uncle Mark to Leo. The text was simple and it made my blood run cold.
Ethan, you need to call me, now. It's important.
Mark isn't an exclamation point kind of guy. He's the most level-headed person I know. I excused myself from the meeting, my heart starting to pound a nervous rhythm against my ribs. I stepped out onto the small balcony overlooking the city street, the cool air doing nothing to calm the heat rising in my chest. I called him.
Hey, are you alone?
His voice was tense, strained. Yeah, Mark, I'm at the office. What's going on? You sound weird. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. I could hear him take a deep, shaky breath.
Man, I don't know how to say this. I saw something. I wouldn't be telling you if I wasn't 100% sure. I didn't want to believe it myself.
Saw what? Mark, you're scaring me. Just spit it out.
Isabella.
The name hung in the air between us.
I was downtown near the Westerly Hotel, grabbing lunch with a client. I saw her. She was with someone, a guy. And Ethan, it wasn't friendly. They went into the hotel together.
The world tilted on its axis. The sounds of the city traffic below me faded into a dull roar. The Westerly. It was a boutique hotel, The kind of place you go when you don't want to be seen. What are you saying, Mark? My voice was barely a whisper. I already knew the answer. I just needed to hear him say it.
I'm sorry, man. I'm so sorry. I took a video. I didn't want to, but I knew you wouldn't believe me otherwise. I just sent it to you.
My phone buzzed again. A file transfer notification. For a full minute, I just stared at it. That little icon held the potential to detonate my entire existence. My finger hovered over the screen, shaking. Part of me wanted to throw the phone off the balcony, to pretend this conversation never happened, to go back into my office and finish my blueprints and live in blissful, stupid ignorance. But I couldn't. I had to know. I pressed play. The video was short, maybe 15 seconds long, shot from across the street. But it was clear, crystal clear. There was Isabella laughing that bright, beautiful laugh that I thought was reserved for me, for our son. She was looking up at a man. He was tall, fit, the generic handsome type you see in a cologne ad. His hand was on the small of her back. He leaned in and kissed her. It wasn't a peck on the cheek. It was a deep, passionate kiss. The kind you share with someone you're intimately familiar with. And she kissed him back, her hand coming up to cup his face. Then they turned and walked through the glass doors of the Westerly Hotel, his arm wrapped securely around her waist. I watched it once, then again, and a third time. My mind couldn't process it. It was like watching a movie starring someone who just looked like my wife. This had to be a mistake, a deepfake, a horrible, cruel prank. But it wasn't. I knew the dress she was wearing. I'd bought it for her for our anniversary 2 months ago. The shock came first, a wave of pure, unadulterated disbelief that left me numb and breathless. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut, all the air forced out of my lungs. I leaned against the cold brick of the building, the blueprints in my office completely forgotten. Then came the anger, a white-hot volcanic rage that I had never felt before in my life. It started in my stomach and spread through my veins like fire. It was a rage so pure it felt clean, sharpening the blurry edges of my shock into a single pointed thought. My entire life, my 10-year marriage, was a lie. I stumbled back into my office, my face a pale, emotionless mask. My business partner took one look at me and knew something was terribly wrong. I mumbled something about a family emergency and walked out, leaving my briefcase, my jacket, everything. I drove home in a daze, the 15-second video playing on an endless, torturous loop in my head. Her laugh, his hand, the kiss, the hotel doors. Every memory of the past few months, the past few years was now tainted, recontextualized through the lens of this new horrific reality. The late-night book clubs, the new expensive lingerie she'd bought, claiming it was to spice things up for us. The hushed phone calls she'd quickly end whenever I walked into the room. It all clicked into place, each piece a small, sharp shard of glass in my heart. When I got home, the house was quiet. Leo was at school. Isabella was... Well, I knew exactly where Isabella was. I walked through the rooms of the home I had designed and built, a home that was supposed to be my sanctuary. Now it felt like a crime scene. Every framed photo of us smiling together felt like a mockery. Her clothes in the closet, her toothbrush in the bathroom, her scent on the pillows, it all felt like a violation. I sat down in my home office, the one place that still felt like mine, and I just stared at the wall. The rage had subsided, leaving behind something far worse, a cold, hollow emptiness. The thread had snapped, and I was in a freefall. I thought the video was the worst part. I thought seeing it with my own eyes was the absolute bottom. But as I sat there, in the silent house that was no longer a home, I had a terrifying thought that chilled me to the bone. What if this was just the beginning? What if the betrayal ran deeper than I could ever possibly imagine? I was wrong. The video wasn't the worst part. It was just the opening act to a horror show I didn't even know I was auditioning for. For the next few hours, I was a ghost in my own house. I moved from room to room, touching things. A photo album, one of Leo's toys, the coffee mug Isabella drank from every morning, as if I were a detective searching for clues to a life that had been stolen from me. The anger would flare up, hot and blinding, and I'd have to grip the edge of a counter just to keep myself from putting my fist through a wall. Then it would recede, leaving me in that cold, desolate void again. I had to make a choice. I could confront her the second she walked through the door. I could scream. I could rage. I could show her the video and watch her perfect world crumble. I craved that confrontation. I wanted to see the shock and fear in her eyes, to make her feel a fraction of the pain I was feeling. But then what? She would cry. She would apologize. She would tell me it was a mistake, that it meant nothing, that she loved me. She would gaslight me, twist the narrative, and maybe, in my broken and desperate state, I would even believe her. A small, pathetic part of me still wanted to believe her. No, a direct confrontation was an emotional response, and emotions were a luxury I could no longer afford. This wasn't a domestic dispute anymore. This was a strategic operation. She had declared a secret war on our marriage, and I had just been handed the enemy's battle plans. It was time to stop being a husband and start being a general. When she came home that evening, I had schooled my features into a mask of placid neutrality. My heart was hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird, but on the outside I was calm. She breezed in, smelling of expensive perfume and lies.
Hey, honey, you're home early.
She came over to kiss me, and I had to use every ounce of self-control I possessed not to flinch away from her touch. It felt like being kissed by a snake. "Yeah, just wrap things up early," I said, my voice sounding unnervingly normal. "How was your day? Productive book club?" The question was a small, sharp jab, a test. She didn't even blink.
Oh, the usual. We spent more time drinking wine than talking about the book.
She laughed, that same beautiful fake laugh from the video. My stomach turned. That night was one of the longest of my life. We had dinner. I asked Leo about his day at school, focusing on his stories about dinosaurs and recess to keep my own sanity tethered to reality. Isabella was the perfect wife and mother, chattering away, completely oblivious to the man sitting across from her who was mentally dismantling their entire life together. Later in bed, she rolled over and tried to initiate intimacy. The casual way she reached for me, as if nothing was wrong, as if she hadn't been in another man's arms just hours earlier, was the ultimate insult. I feigned a headache, a crushing workload, anything to get her away from me. I lay there in the dark, my back to her, rigid and wide awake, listening to the slow, even breathing of the stranger in my bed. The next morning, I made the most important call of my life. I didn't go to some flashy downtown law firm. I went to Arthur Pembroke, a lawyer my father had used years ago. He was old school, semi-retired, and had a reputation for being a shark who looked like a kindly grandfather. His office was filled with dark wood, leather-bound books, and the faint smell of cigar smoke. Arthur, a man in his late 60s with a mane of white hair and piercing blue eyes, listened to my entire story without interruption. I told him everything, my voice cracking as I recounted the video. When I was done, I slid my phone across his mahogany desk. He watched the 15-second clip, his expression unreadable. He played it a second time, then pushed the phone back to me. He leaned back in his leather chair, steepling his fingers.
Well, son, this is a classic grade A mess.
"I want to file for divorce, Arthur. I want this to be over."
Easy there. Wanting it over and getting it over on the right terms are two very different things. You built a successful company during this marriage. You have a significant marital estate, a child. She's not just going to walk away quietly.
"I don't care. I'll give her whatever she wants. I just want her out of my life." Arthur leaned forward, his eyes locking onto mine.
No, you will not. You're emotional right now. And that's exactly what her legal team will prey on. You're going to feel a lot of things in the coming months. Anger, sadness, grief. But you cannot let any of those feelings make your decisions for you. From this moment forward, every decision you make has to be cold, calculated, and strategic. Are we clear?
I nodded, feeling like a recruit in front of a drill sergeant.
Good. First rule, do not let her know that you know. Not yet. We need to gather information. We need to be fully prepared before we fire the first shot. Go home, act normal, be the husband she expects. In the meantime, I want you to get me everything. Bank statements, credit card bills, investment portfolios, deeds, titles. Everything for the last 5 years.
He paused, then added a sentence that would change everything.
And one more thing. It's standard procedure in cases like this, especially when infidelity is on the table. It's just about covering our bases, securing your position regarding child support. We need to establish paternity.
I stared at him, confused. Establish paternity for Leo? Arthur, he's my son. What are you talking about?
I know he's your son, Ethan. You've raised him. You love him. In the eyes of the law, a child born during a marriage is presumed to be the husband's. This is just a formality. Her lawyers will likely try to paint you as a villain, an unfit father, anything to get a bigger settlement. A court-ordered paternity test is an ironclad piece of evidence that solidifies your rights and responsibilities. It's a defensive move. We do it to leave no stone unturned. Do you understand?
I nodded slowly, though the suggestion left a sour taste in my mouth. It felt like a betrayal of Leo, questioning his very existence. But Arthur was the expert. If he said it was necessary, I would do it. For the next 2 weeks, I lived a double life. By day, I was Ethan, the devoted husband and father, playing my part in the family charade. By night, I was a forensic accountant, hunched over my laptop in the dead of night, poring over years of financial records. And the picture that emerged was ugly. There were credit card statements with charges for hotel rooms. Not just the Westerly, but others too. Lavish dinners at restaurants I'd never been to. Purchases from high-end boutiques for amounts that made my eyes water. It wasn't just a one-time fling. This was a lifestyle, a completely separate life she was living, funded by my hard work. I discovered she had a credit card in her maiden name that I never knew about, and the statements were a roadmap of her affair. The man's name was Julian, a personal trainer and life coach. The irony was so thick, I could have choked on it. He was coaching her on how to live, all right? How to live a life of deceit. The evidence was piling up, a mountain of betrayal. Every receipt was another stab in the back. The pain was immense, but with it came a strange sense of clarity. The grief was still there, but it was being slowly replaced by a cold, hard resolve. Arthur was right. This wasn't about feelings anymore. This was about justice. Finally, the day came. Arthur had all the documents. I had my mountain of evidence. It was time to pull the trigger. I chose a Saturday morning. Leo was at a friend's house for a sleepover. The house was quiet. Isabella was in the kitchen, sipping coffee and scrolling through her phone, probably texting him. I walked in and placed a single manila folder on the marble island in front of her. She looked up, annoyed at the interruption.
What's this?
It's a copy of the divorce petition I filed yesterday, I said, my voice steady, devoid of emotion. Her face went through a rapid series of expressions: confusion, amusement, then disbelief. She actually laughed.
A divorce? Don't be ridiculous, Ethan. Are you still upset that I went out with the girls last week?
Open the folder, Isabella. She opened it, her smug smile slowly faltering as she saw the official court documents. Then she saw the printouts of the credit card statements, the hotel receipts, and finally a series of high-resolution still photos I had printed from Mark's video. Her face, her kiss, the entrance to the Westerly Hotel. The color drained from her face. She looked up at me, her eyes wide with panic. For the first time, she looked trapped.
Ethan, I can explain.
Can you? I asked, my voice dangerously quiet. Can you explain the last 2 years of lies? The money, the hotels. Can you explain him, Isabella? And then the performance began. The tears started to flow, right on cue. It was a master class in manipulation.
I'm so sorry. It was a mistake, a terrible mistake. I was lonely. You were always working. It meant nothing, I swear. I love you, Ethan. I love our family. We can fix this. Please don't do this.
A month ago, those words might have broken me, but now they were just noise. I had seen behind the curtain. I knew the actress was just playing a role. It's too late for that, I said. It's over. Her demeanor shifted in an instant. The tears dried up, the pleading look vanished, and it was replaced by a cold reptilian fury. The mask was off.
Fine.
She spat the word out. He's so desperate, he's trying to claim Leo isn't his? How pathetic. Of course, I'll agree to it. Let him embarrass himself in front of the judge. She saw it as a minor procedural hurdle, another chance to make me look like a fool. She had no idea. She thought it was a rubber stamp that would prove her rights as a mother and secure her financial future. We went to a certified clinic a few weeks later. It was a cold, sterile environment. Leo was brave, confused about why a doctor needed to swab his cheek, but he held my hand tightly. I looked at Isabella, expecting to see a flicker of fear, of doubt. There was nothing, just cold, arrogant certainty. She genuinely believed her own lies. The samples were sent off. The results would be delivered directly to the judge's chambers, to be revealed at our final hearing. The weeks leading up to that court date were agonizing. She was already spending money she didn't have, planning a new life built on the ruins of mine. She would talk on the phone with her friends, loud enough for me to hear, about the new condo she was looking at, the trip she was going to take. It was a psychological war and she was relentless. But I held on to Arthur's words, cold, calculated, and strategic. She had no idea that the simple swab of a cheek wasn't a rubber stamp. It was a ticking time bomb, set to blow her entire world apart. And as the court date loomed closer, I started to realize that bomb was going to take out a part of my world too. I just didn't know how much. This next part is where it all comes to a head. The court date, the judge, the moment of truth. So if you're not subscribed yet, hit that button now, because you are not going to believe what happened in that courtroom. The courtroom felt like a refrigerator, cold, sterile, and silent. It smelled of old paper and stale coffee. It was the kind of place where lives are systematically taken apart and put back together in new, often broken, configurations. I sat at one polished wooden table with Arthur. Isabella sat at the other with her lawyer, a sharp-looking woman in a designer suit. Isabella was radiant. She was dressed in a crisp white pantsuit, looking less like a defendant and more like a businesswoman about to close a major deal. She was playing the role of the wronged, soon-to-be independent woman flawlessly. She would occasionally glance over at me, not with sadness or regret, but with a triumphant little smirk, a look that said, "You're done. This is my day." She whispered and laughed with her lawyer, confident and relaxed. To her, this was just the final, boring formality before her new life began. I, on the other hand, felt like I was going to be sick. My hands were clammy, my stomach a churning knot of anxiety. No matter what the outcome, I was losing. I was losing the woman I'd once loved, the family I had built, the future I had envisioned. Even if I won financially, the emotional devastation was absolute. Arthur placed a calming hand on my arm.
Deep breaths, Ethan. We've done the work. Now we let the process play out.
The proceedings began. The judge, a stern-faced woman in her 60s named Judge Miller, entered and the room fell silent. She had an air of no-nonsense authority that commanded respect. Isabella's lawyer went first. She painted a masterpiece of fiction. She spoke of my long hours at the office, my emotional distance, my financial control over the household. She portrayed Isabella as a devoted mother who had sacrificed her own career aspirations to raise our child and manage our home, only to be met with neglect. She argued that Isabella was therefore entitled to a significant portion of the marital assets, including a 50% stake in my architectural firm, the family home, and substantial ongoing alimony.
Your Honor, my client is the mother of the child in this marriage. She has been the primary caregiver for 8 years. To leave her without the means to continue providing a stable home for the child would be an unconscionable injustice.
My blood boiled. The audacity was breathtaking. She was using our son, my son, as a shield and a sword, a pawn in her greedy game. When it was Arthur's turn, he was calm and methodical. He didn't resort to theatrics. He simply presented the facts. He laid out the evidence of the affair, the credit card statements, the hotel bills, the documented lies. He systematically dismantled their narrative of the neglected wife, showing instead a calculated long-term pattern of deceit and financial infidelity. The atmosphere in the room began to shift. Isabella's smirk wavered, replaced by a tight, angry line. They moved on to the division of assets. The lawyers went back and forth, arguing over property values and investment accounts. It was surreal, hearing the life we had built together reduced to a series of numbers on a spreadsheet. Isabella was visibly getting agitated, leaning over to whisper furiously to her lawyer. She had expected a swift, easy victory, and Arthur was putting up a real fight. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, they reached the preliminary agreement on the asset division, pending the court's final approval on matters of support. The clerk brought a stack of documents over. This was it. This was the moment I'd seen in my nightmares. Isabella picked up a pen with a flourish, shot me a look of pure, venomous triumph, and began to sign the papers. And as she signed the document that would give her half of my company, she laughed. It was a low, satisfied laugh, shared with her lawyer. The sound of it echoed in the silent courtroom. It was the laugh of someone who had won, who had successfully executed the perfect heist. I felt a wave of despair wash over me. Was this it? Was she really going to get away with it all? I looked at Arthur. He gave me a subtle, almost imperceptible nod. It was time. Arthur stood up.
Your Honor, before the court finalizes any matters related to child support or alimony, we have one final piece of evidence to consider. As per the court's own order, a DNA paternity test was conducted. We understand the results were delivered directly to your chambers this morning.
Isabella rolled her eyes, a look of theatrical boredom on her face. Her lawyer sighed as if this was a waste of everyone's time. Judge Miller picked up a sealed, letter-sized envelope from her desk. The room was utterly silent. The only sound was the tearing of paper as she opened it. She put on a pair of reading glasses and began to read the single sheet of paper inside. I watched her face. It was like watching a glacier move. Slow, subtle, but powerful. Her professional, impassive expression tightened. Her eyes scanned the page once. Then she went back to the top and read it again, more slowly this time. She looked down at the name of the child, Leo Michael, my last name, and then looked over her glasses at me. Then her gaze shifted to Isabella. The air in the room became thick, heavy. Isabella's smug posture began to dissolve. She shifted in her seat, a flicker of uncertainty crossing her face for the first time. "What is it?" she whispered to her lawyer. Judge Miller put the paper down on her desk. She took her glasses off and looked directly at Isabella. Her voice, when she spoke, was devoid of any warmth. It was cold, hard steel.
Mrs. My last name, this court is in receipt of the certified lab results concerning the paternity of the minor child, Leo.
The judge paused, letting the weight of the moment settle.
According to this legally binding document from the American Medical Laboratory, the probability of Mr. Ethan, my last name, your husband, being the biological father of the child is 0%.
0%. The words dropped into the silence of the courtroom like stones into a deep well. For a second, nobody moved. Nobody breathed. It was as if the world had stopped spinning. Isabella just stared. Her brain seemed unable to compute the information. A slow, confused frown formed on her face. Then she let out a short, hysterical laugh.
What? That's ridiculous. That's impossible. It's a fake. He faked it. He paid someone off.
Her voice grew louder, more frantic. She stood up, pointing a shaking finger at me.
He's trying to get out of paying for his son. He's a monster.
Judge Miller banged her gavel once. The sound cracked through the tension like a gunshot.
Sit down, madam.
Her voice boomed. Isabella, stunned, sank back into her chair.
This is a court-ordered test, processed by a certified and impartial laboratory with a clear chain of custody. The results are legally irrefutable. The child, Leo, is not Mr. my last name's biological son.
The reality of the situation finally crashed down on Isabella. The smugness, the confidence, the arrogance, it all evaporated, replaced by a mask of pure, unadulterated horror. Her face went white as a sheet. Her jaw hung open. The victorious laughter from moments before was a distant, bitter memory. Her lawyer was frantically flipping through papers, her own professional composure shattered. She clearly had no idea. Judge Miller wasn't finished. She looked at Isabella's lawyer, then back at Isabella. Her voice was ice.
This revelation fundamentally alters the entire basis of this divorce proceeding. the claims for child support are obviously dismissed. Furthermore, the state of this marriage and the division of assets must now be considered in the context of what appears to be significant marital fraud.
Fraud. The word hung in the air, heavy and damning. Isabella started to hyperventilate, her breath coming in ragged, panicked gasps.
No, no, you can't. The house, the company. No.
Arthur stood up again, his voice calm and steady.
Your Honor, given this information, we are retracting our previous settlement offer. My client built his business from scratch before the child was even born. The marital assets were accumulated under a fraudulent premise. We contend that my last name's claim to these assets is now severely, if not entirely, compromised.
It was over. In the span of about 90 seconds, Isabella's entire world had been annihilated. Her victory had turned to ash in her mouth. She had gambled everything on a lie, and the truth had just wiped her off the board. She wasn't the wrong wife entitled to a fortune. She was a fraud who had lost everything. She looked at me, her eyes screaming a desperate, silent plea. But the man she was looking at, the man she thought she could manipulate and control, no longer existed. I didn't feel triumph. I didn't feel joy. As I watched her break down, sobbing uncontrollably at the table, I just felt a profound, cavernous emptiness. The man she cheated on wasn't the only victim here. A little 8-year-old boy's entire life had just been irrevocably changed, and I, the man who had raised him, loved him, and tucked him into bed every night for 8 years. I wasn't his father. That single fact was a wound far deeper than any infidelity. The judge called for a recess. The legal battle was effectively over. She would walk away with next to nothing. No house, no business, no alimony, just the consequences of her own choices. I walked out of that courtroom not as a winner, but as a survivor. I had survived the shipwreck of my marriage. I had survived the lies and the betrayal. But now I was adrift in a new, unfamiliar ocean. It's been 6 months since that day. The divorce is finalized. Isabella moved out of state, and her presence in our lives has all but vanished. The house felt empty for a while, but slowly it's starting to feel like home again. My home. And Leo, he's still here with me. That's the one thing I wouldn't compromise on. Biology doesn't make a father. Love does. I told him a simplified version of the truth, that sometimes people who love each other make big mistakes, and that no matter what, I am his dad, and I will always be his dad. It's complicated, and we're navigating it together with the help of a family therapist. Some days are harder than others. But when he hugs me, none of the rest of it matters. He is my son in every way that counts. The journey I've been on has been hell. It broke me down into my component parts and forced me to rebuild myself from scratch. But in a strange way, it also set me free. I'm no longer living a lie. The stage set has been torn down, and for the first time in a long time, I'm living in reality. It's a messy, complicated, and sometimes painful reality, but it's real, and it's mine. It's been a hell of a story to share, and I want to thank you for listening. If my journey can help even one person out there recognize the red flags or find the strength to demand the truth, then sharing this pain has been worth it. Drop a comment below if you've ever been through a situation that just completely blindsided you. I honestly need to know I'm not alone in this. Thank you for being here. I'll see you in the next one.